Right, let's look at other news now. International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor will attend the G7 Foreign and Development Ministerial meeting in London tomorrow. That meeting is being held in preparation for the G7 Leaders Summit that will take place in June. The meeting and summit will focus on building back from the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as renewing global partnerships based on shared values. Joining us in studio now to tell us more about this ministerial meeting is our Foreign Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, welcome. So tell us a bit more about South Africa's agenda here, what we hope to achieve. And then I think there was some hard-hitting statements already from the G7.
Yes, indeed. South Africa will be represented by the International Relations Minister, Naledi Pandor, tomorrow. I think she will be flying an African flag, not necessarily a South African flag. Among issues that I expect her to talk about is how do we build better? You know the slogan, build better, in terms of the global economy after COVID-19. The reality is you cannot build better unless you include everyone, particularly the developing nations. And today, during the WHO briefing, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown, emphasized this matter. Let's listen.
By our failure to extend vaccination more rapidly to every country, we are choosing who lives and who dies. And I say the world is already too deeply divided between rich and poor to allow a new unbridgeable divide to become entrenched between the world's vaccinated who live and the unvaccinated who are at risk of dying. And it's not only the poor who suffer, all of us do. The longer the poorer countries go unshielded, the more the disease will continue to spread, mutate, and threaten not just poor countries, but rich countries too, including the already vaccinated. So this is a global problem that needs the globally coordinated solution Dr. Tedros has just mentioned.
All right, Sophie, so India, of course, everybody's following the horror there. And people are questioning why India, with this capacity to manufacture vaccines, cannot even vaccinate their own population. And we're just seeing this incredible fallout, the bodies piling up. Does this all lead into that issue that's been on the agenda of vaccine intellectual property and the waiver thereof that we've pushed for?
Indeed, Francis, India is one country that is able to manufacture vaccines and also drugs. You know that even during the height of the HIV and AIDS, India is the country that was able to manufacture the drugs and medicine for HIV and AIDS patients. And therefore, again, people are asking why India is not doing the same. But the problem here is the property rights. And therefore, there has been a call to international community, particularly the G7 countries, to do something. Let's take a listen at what Dr. Tedros and Gordon Brown had to say.
I would like to thank South Africa and India for proposing the IP waiver. We see more countries joining South Africa and India in favor of IP waiver. And I hope other countries will be convinced to make this a reality. Of course, from the process so far, we have seen how difficult it is. But what's very striking is if we cannot use all means we have at hand now, including the IP waiver, when are we going to use the IP waiver? Because the pandemic is happening in 100 years. And even the provisions in the TRIPS agreement were meant to use IP waiver for emergency conditions. And the level of emergency we're in now is unprecedented.
There was a rejection originally at the WTO a few weeks ago. I do think from remarks from President Biden and his staff and others that serious consideration is now being given. And of course, the G7, as Dr. Tedros said a few minutes ago, are the group of countries which include many of the vaccine developers and the vaccine originators. And therefore, if they could make a decision that they collectively would support a temporary waiver, I think that'd be a huge advance. It doesn't solve the problem of finance, because we have still got to finance the actual production and manufacturing, distribution and logistics of the vaccine, and we still have to fund testing and all the therapeutics and diagnostics. But it would be a major advance. And of course, the TRIPS agreement, which I know about from my period in government, was designed so that if an emergency happened, something like this, a temporary waiver, could happen. So I support everything that Dr. Tedros has said, and I hope that the G7 and other countries will now discuss this seriously as one of the ways forward to solving the problem.
Yeah, and it's a good question being asked. If not now, then when on earth would we start looking at waiving those patents? It's something South Africa believes should be done. And thank you very much to our foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena. Her and her team will monitor what happens at that ministerial meeting ahead of the G7 leaders meeting, and we'll bring you all the developments from both of those.